Welcome back to the channel. At exactly 7:30 a.m. on October 9th, 2020, on Waverly Drive in the Oak Cliff neighborhood of Dallas, Texas, a horrific assassination took place right before the eyes of witnesses. Jamie Faith, a 49-year-old technology director, collapsed in a pool of blood from 7 ruthless gunshots while walking hand in hand with his wife. At the scene, the wife wept bitterly, bound by the perpetrator's duct tape. The entire United States was shocked by a daring daylight robbery and murder, but no one knew that this entire bloody scene had been meticulously scripted 7 months prior by a hidden puppet master. What naked truth behind the velvet curtain is waiting to be uncovered? If you are a fan of thrilling cases, please click subscribe to the channel and turn on notification bells right now to join us in the search for justice. However, Jamie Faith's life before this tragedy occurred was a series of strangely peaceful and dedicated days. When the dark intentions had been nurtured to full maturity through thousands of manipulating messages, the former Special Forces soldier Darren Lopez officially entered the deadly mission determined by his lover. On the night of October 8, 2020, Lopez quietly stepped onto his black Nissan Titan pickup truck, bringing along a .45 caliber handgun and extreme resentment. He frantically drove through the night, covering a long distance of over 650 miles from Tennessee to enter the territory of Dallas, Texas, while the city was still immersed in sleep. At exactly 2 a.m. on October 9th, Lopez turned off his car lights, parked into the shadows, and moved to hide at an abandoned house located right next to the home of the Faith family. For over 5 long, grueling hours under the cold, early morning mist, he patiently stalked, motionless, like a professional predator on the Iraq battlefield of the past, his eyes never leaving the door of 1000 Waverly Drive. At exactly 7:30 a.m., the sound of a door clicking open shattered the quiet atmosphere. Jamie Faith, in a thin jacket, smiled as he held his wife's hand and walked out to the street to take their pet dog for an early morning walk. Immediately, Lopez rushed out from the bushes with a black mask covering his face. Without a single word of warning, without a second of hesitation, he raised the .45 handgun straight toward the innocent husband. Consecutive piercing gunshots ripped through the air. The first 3 bullets struck straight into his chest, causing Jamie to collapse onto the walkway. When the victim had lost the ability to resist, Lopez approached with ultimate cruelty, firing 3 more fatal shots into his head and 1 shot into his groin to ensure that no miracle could save this man's life. Right after Jamie drew his last breath, Lopez casually turned toward Jennifer. He lightly struck her with the butt of the gun, snatched the ring off her hand, and used a large roll of duct tape that he had prepared beforehand to tightly bind his lover's hands, perfectly staging an unsuccessful robbery before jumping into his car and speeding away. The sound of tires screeching on the asphalt left behind a cloud of dust that blurred the tracks of the perpetrator. However, who would be the first person to discover the horrific truth lying back on that blood-soaked walkway? Just seconds after the perpetrator's pickup truck disappeared, the silence of the Oak Cliff neighborhood was shattered by piercing screams. Nearby neighbors, who were preparing for a new workday, startled and rushed out of their houses upon hearing the sequence of deafening sounds. Before their eyes was a horrific scene. Jamie Faith lay motionless on the sidewalk in a pool of blood, while Jennifer Faith was writhing on the ground, her hands tightly bound with duct tape, frantically screaming for help. Immediately, a neighbor tremblingly pulled out a phone to call the 911 hotline. In the emergency call, the witness's voice cracked with panic, while describing an unconscious man and a woman being attacked. Less than 5 minutes later, patrol units from the Dallas Police Department, along with ambulances, rushed to the scene with blaring sirens. The entire area was immediately cordoned off with yellow crime scene tape. The shocked eyes of the onlookers focused on the poor wife who was sobbing chokingly beside her husband's body. Every trace at the scene at this moment pointed to a savage robbery and murder. However, as experienced detectives set to work gathering the first fragments at the scene, they began to realize anomalies that could not be explained by an ordinary robbery. As the first patrol cars came to a stop, Dallas police officers immediately approached the scene with weapons drawn to ensure safety. After determining that the perpetrator had fled, one group quickly evacuated the panicked wife, while homicide detectives began combing every inch of the ground. At the center of the scene, they found 7 .45 caliber shell casings scattered around Jamie Faith's body. The severe nature of the case was immediately established, as investigators realized this was no ordinary robbery. The victim was shot at very close range, with execution-style bullets directly to the head. Additionally, although Jennifer Faith claimed this was a robbery, Jamie's wallet and other valuables were still intact in his pants pockets. The excessive cruelty, the zero number of witnesses at the time of the shooting, and especially the clumsy way the wife's hands were bound with duct tape, raised a massive question mark in the minds of the most experienced detectives. The simmering suspicions at the scene forced the police to seek an official answer from the sole survivor of that bloody morning. To decode this highly contradictory murder case, the Dallas Police Department formed a task force, beginning with a review of all of Jamie Faith's personal and professional relationships. Initially, detectives hypothesized a personal revenge or a conflict of interest at the technology corporation where Jamie worked as a director. However, after thoroughly checking call histories, emails, and financial transactions, this hypothesis was quickly ruled out. Jamie was an exemplary man who lived a clean life and was deeply respected by his colleagues. The direction of the investigation immediately returned to the sole clue at the scene: Jennifer Faith's testimony about a strange man driving a black pickup truck. Police began conducting a large-scale security camera screening campaign, collecting hundreds of hours of data from residents and roads surrounding the Oak Cliff neighborhood. Luck smiled when a nearby resident's dashcam caught sight of an older model black Nissan Titan featuring a very distinctive white cross emblem on the rear window. This vehicle had been loitering around the victim's house for hours before the crime occurred. Using professional techniques, data analysts traced the pickup truck's tracks through road toll booths. The results of the movement pattern analysis stunned detectives. The vehicle did not belong to anyone in the state of Texas, but had traveled continuously over a long distance from the city of Clarksville, Tennessee to Dallas, just before the night of the murder. When the identity of the vehicle owner was determined to be Darren Lopez, a Special Forces veteran suffering from wartime psychological trauma, detectives posed the question, why would a man more than 650 miles away travel all the way here to murder a technology director he did not even know? The answer began to surface when police synchronized telecommunications data. Confidential search warrants for Jennifer Faith's electronic accounts were approved, opening up a massive archive containing thousands of secret emails and text messages between her and Lopez. Investigators realized that hidden behind the facade of a grieving wife was a complex digital web of deception, where Jennifer used fake accounts to fabricate an untrue story of domestic violence in order to incite the veteran's protective instincts. The cold electronic data exposed the entire predetermined, blood-soaked plan. As the final pieces of the crime puzzle clicked into place, the police understood that the time to cast the net had come. On January 11, 2021, exactly 3 months after the death of Jamie Faith, emergency arrest warrants were approved simultaneously in 2 states, triggering a large-scale coordinated raid operation between the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and local police. In the city of Clarksville, Tennessee, while the early morning mist had not yet cleared, SWAT agents unexpectedly closed in on Darren Lopez's house. Without a single warning siren, the main door was breached with a thunderous strike. Lopez, the Special Forces veteran who had faced life and death in Iraq, was completely subverted by the element of surprise. He did not have time to put up any resistance before the law enforcement's gun barrels. As he was pinned tightly to the floor and handcuffed behind his back, Lopez's face showed no sign of panic, but instead, a cold calmness, as if he had been waiting for this day for a very long time. Right outside in the yard, the black Nissan Titan pickup truck, the transport weapon of the crime, was immediately sealed and towed away. At the same time, in Dallas, Texas, another reconnaissance team raided the residence of Jennifer Faith. The widowed wife, who had just appeared on television with crocodile tears to beg for public compassion, completely collapsed as the cold handcuffs snapped onto her wrists. The confidence and the perfect script she had personally constructed officially crumbled. Both suspects were quickly escorted to isolated interrogation rooms, bringing an end to their interstate crime evasion journey to the astonishment of the public. The handcuffs closed off the freedom of the 2 perpetrators. Now, inside the dark interrogation room, the suffocating battle of wits between investigators and criminal minds officially begins. Inside the 4 cold walls of the Dallas Police Department interrogation room, a suffocating psychological war officially took place. Facing experienced investigators, Jennifer Faith initially still tried to cling tightly to the mask of a grieving widowed wife. She prevaricated, cried, and asserted her complete innocence. "I just lost my husband. You cannot treat me like a criminal." However, detectives had prepared a highly treacherous divide-and-conquer psychological tactic. They did not rush to expose Jennifer, but turned to attack the weaker link, Darren Lopez. In the adjacent interrogation room, the lead detective decisively pushed a series of digital evidence in front of the veteran. Those were Jennifer's sweet yet deceitful text messages, combined with the precise GPS location data of the Nissan Titan at the crime scene. Seeing the undeniable evidence and realizing he was merely a pawn in his lover's game of manipulation, the Special Forces veteran's psychological wall completely shattered. In a low and trembling voice, Lopez bowed his head and confessed, "I did it all because she said she was being abused. I just wanted to save her." Immediately, Lopez's confession was brought into Jennifer's room. As the recording of her lover's testimony played, Jennifer's complexion turned from pale to utter panic. Realizing her perfect script had been ripped apart from the inside, this scheming woman fell completely silent, her crocodile tears giving way to ultimate fear before justice. The final stubbornness ultimately had to submit to the naked truths. Now, with the truth exposed in the interrogation room, the case file officially moved to a more fierce new chapter. The trial. The confession in the interrogation room was only the beginning. To bring the perpetrators to light with an undeniably convincing verdict, state and federal prosecutors worked closely together to consolidate an unshakable file of physical evidence. The first decisive piece of physical evidence was the .45 caliber handgun found during the search of Darren Lopez's home in Tennessee. Testing results from the FBI forensic laboratory confirmed that the ballistic traces on the shell casings recovered at the Waverly Drive scene perfectly matched this gun. Additionally, Lopez's DNA and fingerprints were also detected on the pieces of duct tape he used to bind Jennifer Faith to stage the fake robbery. On the digital front, technology experts successfully restored all data from the fake email accounts created by Jennifer. Thousands of pages of documents containing instigating messages and money transfer receipts that Jennifer had sent to Lopez to pay for travel expenses and pickup truck accessories were uncovered. Notably, police also seized Jamie Faith's wedding ring, the item Lopez had snatched at the scene, which was hidden inside his personal wallet. The tight link between biological evidence, the murder weapon, and the cold chain of financial evidence completely eliminated any chance of defense. The case file was immediately transferred to the Dallas County District Attorney's Office, establishing a solid foundation for an official indictment of murder for hire and conspiracy to commit murder. As the bags of physical evidence were sealed and labeled, justice officially stepped through the doors of the investigation office to enter the solemn space of the federal courtroom. Inside the packed courtroom of the federal court, the atmosphere was as tense as a guitar string about to snap. The defense attorney team attempted to mitigate the charges by drilling deep into the severe post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, of the veteran Darren Lopez, while describing Jennifer Faith as a mentally distraught woman. However, the prosecution smashed all arguments with a sharp indictment. They exposed the cruel nature, the cold calculation spanning 7 months, and the completely inhumane script of deception by the mastermind. As the judge entered the sentencing phase, the entire courtroom fell dead silent. The federal judge looked straight at the two defendants, using the most resolute words to condemn the brutal conduct. This is one of the most manipulative, malicious, and cold-blooded crimes this court has ever tried. The final verdict was delivered like a lash of justice coming down. Jennifer Faith was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the crime of interstate murder for hire. Meanwhile, the blindly devoted veteran Darren Lopez also received a 62-year prison sentence for the act of directly opening fire. The sound of the wooden gavel echoed decisively, officially closing the velvet curtain on the blood-soaked drama. The strict sentences were executed, and justice was finally returned to Jamie Faith after so many days of waiting. Yet, behind the cold numbers of that verdict, this tragedy still leaves behind deeply painful silences. The strict sentences handed down triggered a wave of strong yet reflective responses among the American public. In Dallas, neighbors who had once contributed to a support fund for Jennifer Faith were now shocked and outraged to learn that their trust had been ruthlessly exploited. For Jamie Faith's family and friends, this verdict brought immense consolation, even though they knew the pain of losing the exemplary pillar of their family could never be filled. A family representative shared through choked tears, "Justice has been served, but there are no winners in this tragedy." On legal and social forums, a smoldering debate took place surrounding Darren Lopez's sentence. Many expressed sorrow for the veteran, arguing that he was both the perpetrator and a pitiful victim of an overly sophisticated psychological manipulation game. Conversely, the majority of public opinion agreed that, regardless of the motivation, taking a human life in the name of love, or a fabricated salvation, is an unforgivable crime. The case closed, leaving behind a costly lesson about the fragile boundary between blind love and evil. The journey of justice for Jamie Faith is complete, and the two perpetrators have paid the price behind bars. Now, as the clamor of the courtroom gradually subsides, the only thing remaining is a profound warning about the nature of greed and deception. The shocking murder case in America has officially closed, with strict sentences from federal law. The mastermind pays with her entire life behind bars, while the blindly devoted veteran also had to trade his freedom for his own gullibility. Yet, is justice truly complete when an innocent man is gone forever, and the kindness of an entire community was trampled upon? In your opinion, are the life sentence for Jennifer Faith and the 62-year prison sentence for Darren Lopez truly fair? Is Lopez more pitiful or more blameworthy in this tragedy? As the media clamor fades away, the Jamie Faith case leaves behind a freezing silence, along with cruel psychological lessons about human nature in the digital age. It exposes a terrifying truth. The structure of a family, the trust of a community, or even a human life, can be completely destroyed by nothing more than invisible characters on a phone screen. The greatest lesson from this tragedy lies not in the sophistication of the crime, but in the blindness of perception. Darren Lopez allowed a misguided hero instinct and unhealed psychological wounds from the battlefield to guide him, turning himself into a weapon in the hands of a manipulator. In the name of love and salvation, he committed the most brutal act, only to realize that what he was protecting was merely a deceitful illusion. It is a costly warning about the fragile boundary between compassion and gullibility. In a world where information is easily distorted, placing trust in the wrong place is not just a personal mistake. It can be the starting point for a crime of no return. As for Jennifer Faith, greed and selfishness were covered up by a perfect victim mask. But though the net of heaven is wide, it lets nothing slip through. No matter how sophisticated the manipulation, it always leaves a trace. The price to pay is a life buried behind bars, the contempt of society, and belated regret. This tragedy reminds us that the core values of morality and honesty are never outdated. All lies, no matter how disguised by beautiful justifications, will ultimately be exposed under the light of truth, leaving behind painful consequences and permanently unhealed wounds for those left behind. The truth has been exposed, but the costly lessons will remain forever. If you want to continue accompanying us on the journey of dissecting shocking cases and decoding the hidden psychological corners of the criminals behind them, please click the channel subscribe button and turn on the bell icon right next to it so you do not miss any videos. Your support is the greatest motivation for us to search for the truth. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you again in the next cases.